planification tools, MRP and Forecast with SAP. And I just want to remind people, for those that come every week, I have another one that's on purchasing an MRP. So if somebody wants the recording on that, or the one that we're doing today as well, just send me an email. And before Mike starts, I want to specify that our next one will be on April 20th in 2 weeks. We're going to start our part 1 of a 3-part series on version 9.3. And there's changes to the blanket agreement, which Mike is probably going to be covering today in the forecast. So, Mike, it's all yours.
Thanks, Tracy. Just going to show my screen. If you can mute everybody too, Tracy, thank you. Except me. Okay, hello everybody, this is Mike Taylor. I hope everybody can hear me. I think they can.
Yep.
So today we're going to be covering the SAP planning tools, just basic MRP, as Tracy had mentioned. Oh, we have somebody unmuted.
Yeah, hang on a second. Tina, could you mute your phone? I can't mute you. Okay, it's all yours, Mike.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, just recording it. Okay, so what are we going to do today? We're going to talk about what the MRP is, and it is a famous SAP TLA, or 3-letter acronym. So MRP is Material Requirements Planning, or some people call it Materials Resource Planning, or certain things like that, but it all means the same thing. Basically, it goes through your system and it takes a lot of inputs and it makes a recommendation based on the information in the system to give you a set of recommendations for purchasing and or production, depending on how you're going to do things. So that's basically what it is. So today we're going to go through that. I'll do a demo of it actually in SAP and just show you some of the basic stuff, and we'll ask for questions later. So more on the MRP. The SAP Business One 9.2 to go manual. Oh, I'm just going to close this here. This viewer here. The SAP Business One 9.2 user manual. And if you don't have
Mike,
this user,
just a second. I've got a group. Ganda, Simone, we can see you all on your, I don't know how to block this off. We can see all sitting at your desk. Hang on here. Okay, there we go. All right, sorry.
That's okay. I just closed the window, but glad you guys are there. Okay, so the SAP Business One 9.2 to go user manual. You may, if you don't have it, you can request it from Tracy. She can send it to you, or request it from me. I can send it to you as well. So this is the 264-page user manual that covers the technical aspects of SAP Business One, and one of the chapters is number 7. So they've called it the ABCs of MRP. So this will go through some of what I am talking about today in a little bit more detail with some extra stuff there. So if you need that, go ahead and get that. So we hope everybody has that manual. I just wanted to highlight here, talking about the inputs and the outputs, and I mean, it's kind of a standard saying, garbage in, garbage out, but you're never going to get more garbage out than if your system is not really set up properly and you try to use the MRP. So the thing about the MRP is it basically it's a melting pot, and it takes all the information that's been set up and entered in your system, and it just assumes everything has been confirmed and checked and set up, and then it gives you some information out. So the first steps in your MRP process, you're going to want to obviously check things and make sure that the information you're getting out is looks good to you, or looks, as a purchaser, as a production manager, looks like it makes sense. And you'll go through a process of tuning, and you'll go through a process of refining, and then you will be able to clean up your outputs. So these are some of the inputs here. I hope you can kind of see these. So if you look at the different things that it's going to take into account, so you're going to take item master data for parents and component items, and I'll cover this and I'll show you the item master data form in a little bit more detail. You're going to have the bill of materials for those finished goods, and you're also going to have the bill of materials used in the production of those goods, which could be phantom items or sub-assemblies, etc. So all these things are likely to be set up. There's some details in the item master data that I will show you that are nice to have set up too, that give you a little bit better recommendations. Your supply. So, it assumes all your purchasing and production orders are up to date, that old orders are cleaned out, that you're maintaining things, and the better you're maintaining your system, the better you're going to get information out of the MRP. So obviously monitoring minimum and maximum inventory levels, how you do that based on your business model, and performing periodic physical inventories, right? So if the stock you have is very wrong, you're not going to get good information out of the system, okay? So again, this is the ultimate garbage in, garbage out scenario. So the other thing about it is demand too. So say you have a bunch of, back orders that, maybe you just haven't cleaned up, but you're going to consider using historical data. You can use the open items list to bulk close all your old orders. Maybe they're never going to be fulfilled. Maybe you just want to clean those up. But again, it's kind of assuming that you're going to make sure everything has been cleaned up. So including with that, you're going to have updating your sales forecasts periodically based on changes in economic conditions. So this is kind of like that safety stock gap where you are forecasting, demand will increase a bit. So it kind of gives you that X factor of, adding a couple more items there where you're projecting sales will increase by a certain amount. So we'll talk about the forecasting and the role of that in the MRP too. So you can see all these arrows feed into the MRP run. I kind of jokingly refer to it as like black magic. It kind of just does stuff, and it uses all the mathematical calculations and everything in there. And then it will be executed for a particular planning horizon that you use. And then it basically gives you a set of recommendations that a human user can then take a look at and turn into purchasing requests, which can turn into purchase orders. And then you can use those purchase orders to purchase. Or, there's also the consideration for the production side of things as well. So especially with 9.3, and routings, they have taken, they have included a lot of production stuff in the MRP, and it will kind of mathematically go through, consider all sorts of different things in order to produce. It's the recommendations there. So this is a good summary. And again, if you're looking at, I think it's chapter 7, SAP Business One 9.2 to go. So that's a good place to start. So, what we're talking about here is like planning and data with the item master data. So you're going to have this planning data. So you have full control over what planning method you're going to use. Are you going to use something for the MRP? Do you predominantly buy or make this item? How often do you order it? What's your order multiples? What's a minimum order quantity? What is your lead time? So how long does it take you to get these things? And then the tolerance days are kind of like, does this need to always, like, is this item so critical that we would potentially place an item today, to be having it in 7 days, and then an item tomorrow to have it exactly delivered in 7 days? Or can we kind of gather up a week's worth of requirements and then have that go together? So that's kind of how I see tolerance days. So these things need to be very clean, and the better you're getting with the MRP, the better information you're going to get out. So if you have long lead items and you're looking at the MRP, this is very critical, because obviously the lead time is going to factor into whether or not you can deliver on the orders that are in your system. So once you get this stuff tuned up and trusted, then you can really just fire away with the MRP, systemize how you do your purchasing, you do your ordering, whether you have monthly type orders, then you could do the monthly type monthly, you could do the weekly type weekly, or you could do the quarterly type ordering quarterly, and replenish your stock, look at minimum levels of what you want to take, and you could do those things. You could also just ad hoc use the SAP Business One alerts to tell you when you've gone below a minimum stock amount, and this can really improve your supply chain in addition to the MRP. So the MRP is kind of the tool, systemizes it, but you can also add in your purchases that you just have to make ad hoc as you need them, and those will always be taken into account when you do the full MRP run. So it will just assume that these are zeros for doing it for a normal item. So that's why I'm saying, as you start, you really want to babysit it, you really want to look at it, and then as you develop it, develop your process, you're going to get a better indication of lead times, and you can update your lead times. You can update all this stuff via the DTW. So it's very quick to update. You just have to kind of put in the work to say what is what and which ones have what lead times. So the second thing I wanted to talk about here was not that one, forecasts. So really all the forecast really does is it considers it as an artificial demand for the item in terms of how it works with the MRP. So the forecast effectively takes, something that you have said, maybe you've projected based on last year's sales that you have a very seasonal item or a set of seasonal items, and you always fall behind on those particular items. You can tell the MRP when you're doing your main ordering runs to consider maybe a seasonality forecast in order for it to bump up the numbers that it wants you to purchase based on last year's performance. So the way that you generate that forecast can be done in a couple of different ways. So you could call this, seasonality, and give it the name Seasonality 2018, give it a date range, and then you can either manually add items in here and then give them, in this case, a monthly additional quota, or you can use SAP's mechanism here to generate a very simple, a simple forecast based on historical information. So again, this depends on your historic knowledge. I remember in statistics doing all sorts of, forecasting formulas and seasonality, all sorts of different things. So you can do that and then just paste it into the forecast or import it in as a forecast if you do things in Excel. Or you maintain it outside, you have some sort of other economic factors that you want to consider, and you can use those if you're getting more sophisticated. If you're starting to just dip your toes in the MRP, you can either just leave the forecast alone entirely, or you could do a simple average or a monthly historical average and then just basically give it a time frame historically and allow it to generate kind of an average of what it would use over a period of time. So this could be done monthly, daily, weekly. It depends on how you see your purchases or how critical it is, or when the demand would likely be needed. So that's effectively the forecast. So those are the two things you kind of want to look at. Clean up your sales information, clean up your purchasing information, clean up your inventory items, and then you can run the MRP wizard. So don't be afraid of the MRP wizard. It will not force you to do anything. It will not be flinging POs everywhere to vendors. It is something you can just give it a try, take a look at it, see what happens, and tune. And that's how you do anything. And that's how you would definitely want to get started with the MRP wizard. So I've made a little scenario. You can make your own scenario. So it could, how I've seen it used is a lot of the times you will have, specific types of things that you order in different intervals, obviously. So you have consumable things that you're consuming for a production shop, or you have certain things that you want to replenish for packaging that you do monthly. Maybe they have a little bit longer lead time because they're going to be custom print items. So you can break these out into various scenarios that you like to use. In this case, I've just kind of done a basic one, and we'll go through it and we'll talk about all the options. Okay, so I have a little description here, what it's for, a start date, end date. I want to see it in weeks. My planning horizon is 5 weeks. I want to, there's a lot of other things here. Consider the assembly sequence when you're talking about a bill of materials. So if you're talking about bill of materials for purchasing, you want to consider what is going to be in the assembly sequence in order to plan it out there. So you can consider those for this screen. You can select a subgroup of items. So you can select based on all sorts of different things. Again, this can be used for a particular set of vendors. You could do a property, you could do an item group, you could manually select certain items that you wanted to use. So this supports the various scenarios you're going to do with MRP. I don't think it's not super reasonable to think that one MRP run could be done for every single one of your items. I mean, it potentially, but not likely. So then you come to the data here where you want to know if you want to run the MRP by the company level. So you're going to say, well, we're going to do centralized purchasing. Or do you want to run it by a warehouse level, including existing inventory and demand and stock in those individual warehouses? So the neat thing here is if you click the warehouse level and you add in inventory transfers, then it will actually suggest transfers between warehouses in order to get a better sense of where stock is. Maybe you have more stock in one location, no stock in another location. So that's also something that you need to just be aware of. Some people perhaps would want to do purchasing at a central location and they will control what goes out to the warehouses, but you can maintain minimums and maximums and on all those things, demand obviously for different warehouses. So orders for different warehouses, purchase orders gone to a specific warehouse. But if you already only purchase centrally, it might be difficult because you're going to want to experiment a little bit with it for your organization to see which makes the most sense. So all business models are slightly different. It really is dependent on how you run it, but there are a lot of options here. You can take out, say you had I had this question, I think it was yesterday, about a quarantined warehouse. So you can literally just take that quarantined warehouse out, like a defective warehouse, and not even consider it. So you don't want to include existing stock, you don't want to include any demand, and you don't want to include any purchases to that. I mean, hopefully there's no purchases directly to defective, but could be. So you could just uncheck those, and it'll literally just take it out of the equation. So again, it's with your tuning and the process. You're going to learn what works the best for you. We cannot make, I can't make a blanket statement of what's the best or what's the worst because it's different for everybody. All right, so you have a document data source here. So this kind of makes up what are we going to consider? What are we going to do? What are we going to take into account? And then what are we going to recommend? So you can see here there's kind of 3 main boxes: time range, sources, and then recommendations. So what are we going to consider? Do you only want to look in isolation at a planning horizon? So say you're planning far out and maybe you have some orders you've taken far in advance. Like maybe you just want to say I just need to buy for these pre-orders that were purchased way ahead. I don't want to consider what's happening today. Maybe you're selling retail and you just have some pre-planned stuff. You have to drop a bunch of stuff at a specific date, but you need to get your POs in today because you have long lead times. You could isolate it with the planning horizon. So, again, this is up to you, but you can then also include historical data so you can see things that are existing, and that will gather things up and add things in that would be open. But then this is where you're susceptible to having the sales orders that were on back order be included, which you don't want. So sources of demand and supply. So you can add these various things. So this is the standard ones here: purchase orders, sales orders, production orders. You can consider other inventory transfer requests, blanket sales agreements, purchase orders, sales quotes, and other things. Some of these do make sense, some of them don't make sense. You can restrict specific ones that you don't want included. You can do all sorts of things there, again, once you get a little bit more sophisticated. The inventory level, you could just do a run that considers minimum inventory levels. Maybe you're just replenishing specific stock that you want to hold as safety stock levels, and you just want to get out some minimums. You're on track for most things, but maybe you just want to see maybe something had been really used, or several warranty claims, they're consuming some specific part, and maybe you got an alert and you thought, hey, I got an alert for one thing, maybe I missed another alert a couple of weeks ago or something, so let's scan the system for anything that we're below the minimum level on, and it's going to recommend to bring everything back up to that minimum level. Here's where the forecast comes into play. So this is where you can add, again, for your different scenarios that you're building, you could say, well, is this something that's seasonality? Like maybe I'm doing, again, custom things or things that have long lead times, but I know that I do a big trade show in the summer, and I need to look at some seasonality for the summer. Again, this is quite a sophisticated step you're going to be taking, but it will give you the ability to add, not just the minimum levels, but also add, and I don't want to give you a bad impression of it, but artificial demand, because you're not sure, like it's not true orders, but it acts as an additional layer of orders in order to buffer out your inventory so that you don't run out of specific things. And potentially, every year I run out of I run out of packaging. Every year I run out of these supplies I need. Every year I run out of, my wrapping products. I run out of boxes. I run out of these things. So throw something in there. Maybe that it's a seasonal thing that deviates from the minimum, or maybe you just have a really big spike in a specific, maybe you have a trade show season, and that spike can be captured in the forecast. So those are the ideas there in order to have things flow through. And you're going to see that in the results. It'll show what is being brought from a forecast. So the third part here is recommendations. So you can do these purchases directly to a purchase order. You can also do it to a purchase request. I think this makes a lot of sense too, because you could, in some cases, if your tolerance days are off, you might just want to group things from purchase requests into final purchase orders. Maybe you're considering which vendor you want to use. So you could do your purchase request and drag those in or change those. So it's not something that's actually going to reflect in the next MRP run. So usually I'm going to say, purchase request is a good way to go. But if it's just basic stuff and you're replenishing some supplies, you could go directly to purchase order. So this is just going to recommend to create purchase requests. It's very simple. You just do the same copy to mechanism to copy to a PO. So this we've already selected, we want to do production orders, so it's going to make production orders, and then also the inventory transfer requests, whether or not it's going to do the requests between the inventory or between the warehouses. So we've done all this stuff. I have not made any changes here. If I had made a change, you could resave the scenario. So your scenario, again, is always going to be something that you want to focus on, the different types of things and different mechanisms of your procurement and your supply chain, all the details that go into that. I mean, that's why a human is running it. There's a lot of different factors that get taken into account. And so that's what we like to support in managing that. So you basically get all your information and click your run. And this is a very limited report here, but it just highlights a couple of different scenarios. So you're going to get a set of results like this. This is a demo database, of course. So we have a lot of issues here. So these are highlighted in red. So this is what you're going to see. So if I look at the first one, okay, this is great. I pop this open, initial inventory of 2, and then I have a historical demand of 2. Okay, so I can see exactly where this came from. 2 open historical sales orders that are still in there, that are about to be delivered, maybe some sort of back orders, or maybe these are big mistakes and you want to just clear this out. You can also check through here. Maybe you know that you have more than 2. So again, this is something that, the cleaner your system is, the better the information coming out of here is. So then you're going to see the supplies and the demands here, and based on what you're going to need for sales orders in these weeks, it's going to recommend doing a purchase request. So it's going to do a supply from recommendation, and it's going to recommend doing 2 separate POs in order to get those for the week. So just-in-time type of just-in-time type of supply. So this is done by week. So week 16 of the year, week 17, etc. Okay. The second one here.
Mike, I just have a question for someone that has purchase requests. I don't know if anybody today uses the blanket agreement, but how would the blanket agreement be able, would we be able to see it in there on the purchase request?
I haven't prepared anything for that. So.
Okay, but can it just if you just want to answer it, can it, if someone uses the blanket agreement, this can all blend in together?
Yeah, if you consider it as a source document.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so with the second item, you're going to see that this one's showing up all red here, and you have your initial supply of 1, but your demand of 2, and your final inventory is -1. So you can see that if you don't do this, you're not going to have the supply that you need to deliver what you need to deliver. And so because it's showing as red, this is indicated as a problem, and it's also showing you that you're not going to be able to make it. So this is something where you're going to need to shift out the delivery date on your orders, and that's something that's going to need to be communicated to the customer. But this will highlight where there's going to be issues in the supply chain. So obviously, ultimately, you would like to have these all be black without any issues. You can filter possible problem items to work with them and to see what's going to cause an issue. And again, this will help to communicate better with customers if you know you're going to be far out on a specific thing. So the last one is here's just a longer lead time. So this one had a little bit of a longer lead time. The demand is a little bit further out in a couple weeks. It takes a couple weeks to get these. And it's going to make a purchase request to have it due in the week that you're going to ship it. So I haven't been very specific with these. I've just gone week by week and basically said tolerance by a week. So it'll just group up the demand and supply by the week, and it will basically have it delivered within that week, and then you'll be able to ship it within that week. So it's not, obviously you want to meet your delivery dates. If you put those delivery dates there, it will get you close. If you want to be hyper close, then your tolerance days would be smaller on specific items. So that's something I want to talk about there. So this chart basically gives you, and I tried to make it really as simple as possible. Depending on the amount of horizon you're using, it's going to obviously have a ton of data, and there's more information here, and you can drill down into each one. You're going to need to look at the recommendations here in order to see what SAP is going to recommend. And you can take a look at this, look at what you'd seen in this chart, and then you can simply save these recommendations. So at this point, nothing has been created. You're aware of some issues that are going to be presented with that second row. You've either communicated them to the sales order, the sales rep, so they could talk to the customer, and they can change the delivery date, and you can rerun the MRP if you want, if they can take a different delivery date, or you can just kind of proceed and realize that you're going to be off on that delivery date. So that's a big part of that. So once you've done the forecast in the MRP wizard, you'll have your order recommendations, and now it's where you're going to take your different scenarios, and you can work through these and actually go ahead and create the specific documents you want. So you can create, and you can see here an inventory transfer request has been made because I've used a warehouse level MRP run, and it detected that in one of the other warehouses, you had a couple of orders, and in the main warehouse, you had extra stock. So this will process that, and you can go ahead and create all of these and process them forward to the different vendors. So in this case, I have the vendor codes of who I'm going to buy it from, and I have the prices based on the price list. So you can change that, work through these, change the due dates if you need for delivery dates, and then process them all through to a purchase request. You could make this directly to a purchase order, and you can work through this spreadsheet, create, and then just update, and everything will go through perfectly. And you will have taken the best of what you have in terms of your system with the clean data and the lead times and the different scenarios, and you will have merged that properly with your minimums and your forecasts, and it will spit out a very nice, clean, usable, summarized set of items that you need for procurement. So that's how we would normally use the MRP. So that's my demo of the MRP and Forecast. Are there any specific questions that people had for this?
Hang on, Mike. I'm just going to unmute everybody in case there are any. All right. Whoops. Oh, there we go.
I think she's doing it anyway.
Hi, Tina. Did you have a question?
Okay, since now we don't have any specific question, thank you so much, Mike, for the presentation.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody else have any questions for Mike?
Yes. Hello, my name is Nick. I have a question about under MRP for the item selections. Is there any way to paste in a list there, or does that have to be manually loaded item by item and then saved as a list?
It doesn't look like you can do it one at a time. I wonder if you could just kind of, I don't think you can paste in there.
Okay.
What I would recommend is if you need some sort of sub-selection list, use a property, right? So you would set this to like selection property, check it, and then it would just select all those. So each of the items that was part of that would come in there. Or you can use some sort of expanded criteria. So you have preferred vendor, country of origin, and these are, I believe some of these are UDFs. So any UDF you can use would also be available as a selection criteria. So if you could either do, and I don't think you could paste, but you can kind of manually choose them one at a time.
And then you can save that list, I assume?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it saves it within the specific scenario. Okay. So it makes a lot of sense if it's something that's repeatable, use a property.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Are there any?
Hi, this is Brenda.
Hi, Brenda.
Could you explain the tolerance days a little more? We're just having a really hard time grasping that one.
Okay, yes, this is also something that's kind of like, it's tricky to grasp. I guess let's take a look at this item. What you're going to get if you don't have tolerance days is a whole bunch of individual PO recommendations where it's going to suggest you buy to have things delivered for each day. So if you had something where you have a sales order that's delivered Friday and you have a sales order that's delivered Wednesday, it's going to try and tell you to purchase one for Wednesday and one for Friday in isolation. So it's literally just like, you need it for this day and you need it for that day. So you can summarize that in the recommendations in the PO itself. But I find some people find that annoying. They just want you to group it together. So say it's 5 days even. So if it was Wednesday and Friday, then it would consider it as a single day and it would make a single recommendation to have it delivered on the beginning of that period.
Right. Currently, we plan in monthly buckets, and say like the recommendation is say for a Monday or a Tuesday, and there's an MO in for a Wednesday or a Thursday. It's doubling everything. So you'll see the recommendation plus you'll see the MO.
Right.
So we're having to back everything out manually.
Which one?
So we're not quite sure what to put in for the tolerance days.
What's an MO?
Sorry, manufacturing order.
Oh, okay. I thought production order.
Production order, yeah.
Yeah, so duplicating it, I'd have to take a look at it and check it offline. I don't know, maybe that would do it, but I'm not sure why would it be duplicating it? If you do a run, make them, and then you consider the production should be taken into account for your MRP. So perhaps you're not taking production into account in your MRP run?
No, it is. The production orders are in there. What it'll say, it's telling us we need to make something, say like a Wednesday, and the planner has put something in. She's put the MO in for Thursday, the day after the recommendation. It shows the recommendation and the work order. So it looks like
and
it's giving a double.
Yeah, that is tolerance. Yeah, exactly.
We weren't sure how to put that in so it doesn't do that.
Yeah, so I would play with tolerance days, and this was the same scenario that, it's like, Wednesday, it's so late, and then it's like, well, you can make it for Thursday, but then you had the purchase for Thursday, and that's another good factor, is if the PO is for Friday, but you have a delivery Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if it's 5 tolerance days, then it doesn't freak out about that, and it doesn't try to get you to order it the week before to get the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It'll just consider those in together. So I think that's kind of the key for what you would want to work with there. Yeah.
Okay. Does it only take into account after, or does it also do before? Like, if and I'm not sure if I'm explaining this properly.
Yeah, I think it's both days. It's both ways. As far as I remember, I'm 60% confident. Okay, I would want to test. I'm just being totally straightforward. I'm 60% confident it goes both ways, because I believe that what triggered me looking at this originally was the same process, but with a purchase order, where it was like a day. It was like, the purchase order is a day or two later, and it's still telling us to pre-order it the week before. So I think it takes it into both into account both directions, because that would just make sense. So I would test that and verify it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was my main question.
All right.
Mike.
Yes.
Which version of SAP are we running for time?
This one?
9.2. Yes.
Yeah. This is 9.3 PL2. I haven't gone to PL3 yet. Are you seeing something weird that I'm?
No. That actually the graph in the background, that was very.
Oh, this is actually B1 up. So this is not an SAP included thing. This is a default part of the B1 usability package, B1 up. So yeah, I like it too. So I could hide it, but.
But you know what? I have a demo that Mike did for B1 Up. It's Boyum. It's an add-on that it's totally integrated in your SAP. I can send you guys the demo if you just want to see what it does. Just okay, B1 Up. Who would I send that to?
This Majid from Tutsi.
Hi Majid, how are you? Okay, I'll send you the Boyum demo that Mike has.
Perfect.
Hello, I have a question. For the lead time, when we have different lead time, local supplier and overseas supplier, how does it work? Because it's going to be not accurate. Information is not accurate anymore because we're dealing with 2 different suppliers.
Yeah, you need a more advanced planning tool. So, I mean, this is where the order recommendations allow you to select the preferred vendor. So if there's a series of items that are really long lead time, but you see them really red flagged as just you just can't make it, then the purchaser would be able to just switch it to a local supplier. And then if the POs are in there that will deliver it, that will eliminate the problem. We cannot claim that the MRP is a robot artificial intelligence that will do purchasing, right? So some of these scenarios, they really work as tools for a procurement person. but I agree that's a limitation. It won't consider it won't consider short and long lead times or alternative sources of supply. Currently, there's only one lead time, but there's like I think Velogix does it. There's a couple of add-ons that have deeper tools for supply chain management, and we can scope those out if that's what you want to do, but not out of the box. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you saw in the order recommendation, you can dynamically switch the, you can actually dynamically switch which vendor you use. So if you know, right, they'll probably know. They're like, oh, this is red. Let's switch local. We need this. It's critical. Just switch it, and then when you make your recommendations, it'll do that. So, yeah.
Hello, Mike. This is Dina from Tokyo.
Hello.
I have a question, please. Over the same period of time, can we have different scenarios for the same item?
Yes, I don't see that as being an issue because it's going to treat each scenario in isolation, but it will do the same mathematical recommendations.
But I just received a message that's telling me there is already a scenario existing for this item, and it refused to give me the second scenario.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, what version are you on?
9.2.
9.2. I'll you know what? I can take this offline, and I'll have to check it. I wasn't aware that was a limitation, so because I had seen I had experimented with minimums, like doing a minimum run and then doing a regular MRP run. So
I can give you an example. If I want to do a forecast for Q1 for one item.
Oh, is it forecasts? Was it forecasts or MRP scenarios? Like you want to put
Yeah, I do the forecast, and then I do
okay.
I started with creating the forecast, right?
Okay.
And then I go to create my scenarios.
Yes.
So
what was it the scenario that wouldn't let you duplicate, or was it the forecast that wouldn't let you have duplicates?
Actually, I cannot remember now. It's one of them gave me a message I cannot do. My task is to do I want a scenario for Q1 for one item to see the recommendation, and then this one item is an ingredient to produce another item. So I have a list of items, and it was there with those items. And it didn't allow to give a scenario or a forecast.
Was a component of another item. Yeah, I'd have to try it offline. Let me just see if you can do this in here. Save this scenario. Okay, so this is one scenario, and then this particular one. Add selected items. And this one, save scenario. So I can confirm that multi-scenarios, it's fine for sub-selection of items. So it was, and again, this is in 9.3. So I've selected the same specific item, and again, I was pretty confident about that, and especially in this version. So was it? I'm not following the example. So it was a produced finished goods item with a set of bill of materials.
Okay, let me try to go through this on my desktop, and I'll take pictures of the message. We will communicate by email.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. That sounds like a great idea. Then I'll be able to more effectively troubleshoot it with you.
Do you guys have Mike's email?
Yes, I will transfer the Mike's email to Dina.
Okay, good. All right.
Mike, one more question. Can we use these MRP tools as a preventive maintenance system for the service queue as well?
For service items?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like in a resource planning, or just to kind of pseudo plan capacity for delivering services.
Sort of.
Yeah, labor testing. I'm not sure. I've never seen it like that. Let's see, labor. I wonder if I leave it as an item, just a non-inventory sales item. Okay, and then let's just quickly take this one. I think like mathematically it should work. I mean, it considers it really as the same thing, but yeah, it won't let me select a non-inventory item in here. So doesn't look like you're in, oh wait, maybe I did this default to not use MRP. Yeah, okay, hold on a second. Here, add items, labor. Yeah, it looks like I can use it. So I would think that, I mean, in this case, actually, I should have made this well, I guess you don't need it as a purchase item. So, I mean, I think you can use it to chart out your, you know, your monthly requirements and use it for the planning horizon. I don't really see why it wouldn't work. I mean, there's bound to be some drawbacks, perhaps, that I'm not thinking of. I mean, the thing about doing it this way too with labor is you could also do it as a crystal report with a chart. Or if you had something, you know, if you had something like B1UP, we could do stacked bar charts. Like you could do a capacity per day or a capacity per week or a capacity per month, and then just simply add up the services. And then you could just drill into those and see, you know, where those are. So you could do a big like, you know, service KPI dashboard, and it would give you like week by week kind of the rolling total and show you where you're going to be weak with just basic forecasting of things. That might be a better way to go, or a crystal report. But yeah, you know, give it a try. I think it's worth trying there.
Mike,
I have a
our
question.
production manager asked non-ERP question. Is it a good time to ask?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
For production manager, he has the non-MRP question. Is that a good time to ask?
No. If you don't, you can just email me directly or email or log a question to support. But yeah, we can discuss other things.
Push my chair to ask.
It's a good time when we're already connected. But
and everybody loves Mike.
Somebody else has a question. I heard a quiet voice there.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I have a question about how to summarize. So we right now, you're saying tolerance days will help us summarize, but is there a setting in the MRP where you can, regardless of where the demand is coming from, whether it's to meet requirement or to meet a sales order, add it all together instead of having separate PO lines?
Well, that's the tolerance days. The visual chart summary should be in view data periods of. So if you want to view it in your report when you run it, then that's where you would do it like this. But from my experience, I literally just updated to this 9.3 version. It will still recommend. If it doesn't have the tolerance days, it's going to make the recommendations. Again, without the tolerance days, it's literally like, if you need it Friday and Thursday, you need 2 rows, Friday and Thursday, because you've indicated to it, and especially if you have no data in there for tolerance days, it's going to just consider it 0 tolerance days. So if you have a PO on Friday and a sales order on on other days, like you said, it's not gonna group it. So there's no setting. The setting in that would be the tolerance days. But the tolerance days are quite quick to DTW. Use the DTW update tolerance days, and you can set those there. Or you could use a formatted search to set it as default for all new items too. Or if you have B1UP, you could use that automatically too to set it for a new item. So yeah. Again, it's a misunderstood thing, but I think it smooths out some of those recommendations. And if you're using it out of the box, it's really granular. It's really like, it's like you got to be so specific. But the tolerance days makes it more like, we have an order Thursday and Friday, and we're going to just place the order. It'll take a week or 2, and we'll get it by Monday, and then it'll be shipped out by the Friday. So a couple days here or there is the tolerance day function.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tracy.
Yeah. You're welcome.
You're welcome, guys. I'll send you the recording anyway because I think Mike answered a lot of questions in there. Are there any other questions? Okay. So look, if anybody wants this recording, send me an email, tracy@forgestic.com, And for those who did ask questions, I'll send you the recording of this. Like I said earlier, for some who came in a bit later, I have another demo on purchasing an MRP that we did. Was it last year, Mike? That might cover different things
so.
that I could share as well. You know, if anybody wants that. I don't think it was as based on forecast. It was more on purchasing, but I've got that as well. Who is that?
It's Majid.
Yeah, Majid. Hey, Majid, so you'd like to have that one as well?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay.
It's good to have it. Yeah.
Okay, I'll send both. Good. So, and as I said earlier, in 2 weeks, our next presentation, we're starting a 3-part series on version 9.3, and it covers a lot of new stuff, blanket agreements and everything. So, you'll be getting the invitations in 2 weeks. So,
Okay. We
thanks.
are really like to get this upgrade, but however, you know, as I already communicated with Frederick, we need to make sure that there is no conflict between 9.3 and IREN.
Absolutely,
So,
but you know what? You guys have to speak. Who takes care of your file at our place, Majid? Is it who is it that takes care of you guys? Your migrations. Who was your last migration person?
yeah, it was Joao.
Was Joao? Okay, because I could ask Joao to call you and just to see if there's anything that'll interfere with all your add-ons and the way you've personalized your system. Do you want me to ask him to call you?
Had a deep difficulty when we are upgraded to the 9.2 because 9.2 had incompatibility with IREN, and you know we were suffered for months until the things got fixed. So
Okay.
we don't want to drop in the same situation again.
It might be a little bit early on 9.3.
Yeah,
it was
it
like
just came out.
It's been out probably for 6 months, and certain add-on partners will go very aggressively after it to support it. Some won't, and it's just in general release maybe 2 weeks ago. So it just was like approved for production environments. It's on PL03. So you might be jumping the gun unless you really want like RMAs or certain specific things.
No, we are not in that rush.
I prefer
to be like this, you know.
But you can always you can always add B1 up. You can always add those dashboards.
No, I'm not interested to be the first victim of that.
No, Boyum has a really nice product, and Mike is our Boyum Pro. He does so much with this. It's a really nice add-on.
Yeah.
But I'll send you that one as well, Majid. Okay, and you can get back to me.
That looks very interesting.
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, it is.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Enjoy your weekend, and back in 2 weeks. So if you need anything, send me an email. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.